We've covered every boss in this amazing series on my channel. We've covered some bad, some mediocre, a lot of good, and a ton of great. Now, it's time to close it out with the best of the best. It's so hard to place these top 10, as I'm splitting hairs between perfect bosses. This is my top 10 bosses of Soulsborne and Elden Ring. Number 10, Malekith, the Black Blade. Many of the best bosses of the series pull on the heartstrings. They have a twisted or tragic tale that keeps me scraping the depths of the internet to find their inner workings of their enthralling character. Gehrman, Abyss Watchers, Gascoigne, Artorias. While Malekith does have an interesting story of betrayal and duty, the real reason he placed so unbelievably high is entirely different. It's because he may well be the perfect mechanical encounter. Initially, I was lukewarm on the Beast Clergyman phase of this fight, but following extensive research in a Rune Level 1 playthrough, and a lot of deaths, I've concluded that I love this phase too. It has an assortment of unique attacks, completely separate from typical FromSoft canon. He requires you to plan and prepare for the assortment of switch-ups he can bring to the table, and if you actually take the time to study his movement, it becomes wonderfully rewarding. Phase 1 is a great appetizer, but obviously Phase 2 is the main course. The cutscene transition may be my favorite of the entire game. The music swells, the visual and mechanical design changes, and the boss interacts with the arena in a way not before seen in Souls. He nimbly dashes through the air with fluid and enchanting movement, and careful positioning is the only counter to some combos. I enjoy the switch up to an emphasis on positioning over simply dodge timing, although both are required for victory. Some find him lackluster due to his low HP and unbelievably high damage output, but this glass cannon design makes every fight a high-octane thrill ride of pure adrenaline insanity. Number 9, Dark Eater Midir. Descendant of the Archdragons, Midir was raised by the gods. He was tasked with an eternal battle against the dark, a dark that soon resided within himself. There is glory and beauty in this magnificently terrifying, towering beast. It feels as though the entire middle section of the Ring City DLC is devoted to building him into the larger-than-life figure that he is. You hear of him prior to meeting, and then are eviscerated by him without a thought. He hardly even notices you, but as he decides to annihilate that bridge, you evaporate in a flash. You then encounter Midir again on another bridge. He perches precariously, and you battle in a clash of the ages atop an endless plummet to darkness. It's not even the real damn boss, and it's better than most bosses. This is also like a tasty inversion of Go's Shot. As much as I love the deep-voiced blind giant, there's something even more gratifying when you get to get your own hands stinky. As you apparently slay Midir in a violent riposte, he plummets to the abyss below, unbeknownst to you, awaiting your eventual return. Then, the real fight starts. You get this gorgeous view as you plummet into a secluded, colorful cave, and see Midir slumbering in front of you. As you approach, it becomes clear that this is going to be the greatest dragon battle of video game history. There are so many reasons this cracks my top 10. For one, Midir has a tragic backstory akin to the greats, like Artorias, tasked with battling the dark and honorably presuming that duty despite the danger to himself. He has the most glorious visual design of perhaps the entire series. He's a brutal challenge with an unbelievably dense moveset. The arena is jaw-dropping and the spectacle is there. But is that enough to land it here in the top 10? Not really. There are so many bosses that do a lot of this stuff. What makes Midir stand out to me is the subtle change to mechanics that make him a flawless physical bout. Number 1, they remove the stupid entire boss being a hitbox. God, I can't stand it when massive monsters walk in these games and their farts send your HP to hell. Midir has specifically set hitboxes. For example, with his Rampage move, he will only damage you with his mouth, fire, or swiping claws, not from stepping feet in the back. Thank God. Number 2, you have to fight him head on, literally. This takes some of the design philosophy of Bloodborne, with bosses like Amygdala, and refines it for a Dark Souls battle of unrivaled scale. A consistent theme in my rankings on this channel has been, how do we handle colossal figures in a game with Souls combat? There are a few options. Chip at the ankles blindly, losing all cinematic and engaging parts of the fight for random spam, have the boss reposition regularly, and have the closing distance be the challenge, change the weapon used to allow for grander scale a la Yorm or Ricard, or we can do the Amygdala or Midir solution, which requires you to hit the head. This might just be my favorite solution, as it encourages hyper-aggression, getting right in the face of this towering foe, while still allowing for the consumption of all of the glory. Midir leaves clear openings for punishment after just about every combo, meaning you're constantly getting hits in while being terrified of everything you're seeing. You're not blindly dodging, but entirely captivated by the perfection. Number 8, the Demon Prince. From one behemoth Dark Souls 3 boss to the next, we now have what could be, in my opinion, the most underrated boss of the entire series. Lawrence would likely take that title, but the runner-up is the often overlooked Demon Prince. Essentially, I think this is the perfection of the ONS style gank fight, and one of the best big beast fights to follow it up. Let me explain how. First off, you take a drop for what feels like ages. Of course, it's soon revealed that you're actually in a warped, degraded version of Firelink Shrine from Dark Souls 1. Then you see two massive, menacing, fiery beasts. The ingenious component of the fight comes from the ability to selectively juggle aggro. Each of the beasts will take one state at a time, one in ranged and the other passive. Despite their mirrored design and size, you are able to balance their aggression with these altered states. It's almost like an artificial size and speed distinction, brought upon by your choice of aggression. If you start attacking a passive one, it will become enraged, and the other will become passive. This allows for you to set the terms of the fight. You can always be getting hits in, as there is ample space to move. The battle is challenging but fair, and the animations are some of the most satisfying in the series. Also, there is a lot of riposte opportunities, which gives you invincibility frames to dodge other attacks. After killing both demons, the real fight begins. You are surprised with a deserved and shocking phase transition as the demon combusts into a fiery monstrosity, doubling in size. Depending on the demon you killed first, you will face one of two options for variations of the boss. This again gives the player the ability to control the experience. The animations of the Demon Prince are, in my opinion, the best of any masked boss in the series, or at least Dark Souls 3. Every attack feels weighty, every move looks stunning, and the player interactivity with the boss reaches levels not before seen or yet matched. I suppose this fight doesn't have as much of an emotional connection for most players, as it's placed so early into the DLC. Maybe that's why it's ignored so much. It's like if the Demon Prince was placed in the Sanctuary Guardian's position in the Dark Souls 1 DLC. It comes in so early that there isn't enough time to build hype and intrigue. I'm not sure, but I honestly think this is so underrated that you should all take some time with your demons and approach this fight with a new eye. Number 7, Knight Artorias. Rankings are hard. There are so many things to consider by default, from the music to the look, the lore, the mechanics, and so forth. But even more challenging are the meta components. What I mean by that is the things in the fight that are not directly caused by that battle. For example, Dark Souls 2 is known for having slower combat, so should all bosses be penalized for that game's sluggishness? Or what about the frame issues of Bloodborne? Should that be a factor? Or what about the simplicity of some bosses in the early games? Surely a boss from the first game with a third of the attacks as Midir, limited graphics and such, cannot match such profundity. Personally, I think there's something to be said about the value of doing it first. While some music today might be more technically proficient and sonically balanced than other recordings from the 50s, pioneers of their era deserve due credit for their boundary-pushing achievements. It doesn't mean that they get a complete pass for shortcomings, but just because the bass isn't as crisp or clear in an old recording doesn't take away from the artistic achievements. All of this is to preface that even with some of the technical shortcomings of Dark Souls 1, compared to later installments, there was no doubt in my mind that Artorias would make the top 10. While I won't delve too deep into the endlessly talked about lore of Artorias, I think it's a crucial component as to why he is beloved by the community. In a world of chaos and destruction, particularly caused by dishonorable actions, Artorias almost feels like a beacon of hope, faith in humanity and their capacity for good. He selflessly endeavors to the depths of depravity to battle Manus, and is defeated and corrupted, but not without selflessly saving his loyal companion Sif. He lost his shield and broke his arm in the process, and is now a corrupted husk. He lurches with the animations of a zombie, but still maintains his glorious blue armor. The abyss sheds off his contorting body, broken arm limp at his side, and you are tasked with giving this honorable warrior an honorable death. I love that the legend of Artorias lives on, and it is spread far and wide that he defeated the abyss, despite the fact that he succumbed to it. And without us, perhaps that legend would not have lived on. It inspired the Abyss Watchers in their battle against the Dark, and this type of story with complex and layered theming is something that transcends simple boss mechanics. Although Artorias has some sick mechanics and combat that is way beyond what we had seen in the series thus far. He's quicker and more engaging than any fight in the following game, and seems to lay the blueprint for 10 out of 10 bosses in future installments. I've had him as my profile picture on Discord for a year for a reason, and he'll always be a favorite character of mine in gaming. I love his oddly erratic movement, as it always keeps you on your toes for what could be coming next. His power-up phase can be cancelled with calculated aggression, and it's just balanced, challenging, and he's just a Chad. An Omega Chad. No jokes? Okay. I'm blue dabba dee dabba da. Number 6, Mohg, Lord of Blood. You may have noticed a change in my rankings. Initially, I placed Malekith as the best boss of Elden Ring, and at the time, that was true. He still just slid into my top 10, but another boss has climbed higher and higher with every encounter. That boss is Mohg, Lord of Blood. Where do I even begin with this monstrosity? I suppose with who he is, as there may have never been such a purely evil character in a Souls game. I'm not going to fully explain the depths of his depravity, for obvious reasons, but I will say that I was really surprised at how dark this game went. But Mohg was a secret surprise. I thought I had found all of the areas, faced all the bosses. But the most disturbing of all was left unchecked. Mohg is vile, and while I've commented on the hellish components of other bosses of the series, it's hard not to see the clear visual references to Lucifer in his towering wings. But before that, we see a cutscene that genuinely made me feel unwell on first viewing. The music is perhaps my favorite of the entire game, only in competition with the final battle. The fight is balanced, yet grueling, including a massive assortment of maliciously calculated strikes from Mohg. And then, this happens. I know some people find this transition frustrating, but I think it adds to the battle, the characters, and my own anxiety in a way that just about no other boss or game has. My stomach drops as the terror builds, and I frantically spam healing to outlast his godlike onslaught. Just like the steps of the dancer or the screams of the cleric beast, Mohg's counting down to his eventual Nihil chant make the atmosphere of this fight. This unleashes Phase 2, which coats the arena in blood flame. Similarly to Malekith, careful positioning as well as perfect timing are required to come out on top, and it's a dance with death that I think was perfectly realized. Number 5, Lady Maria of the Astral Clock Tower. The penultimate placement of Bloodborne's fallen heroine was obvious. There was no other place for her, other than in the top echelon of the FromSoft catalog. She ticks every box in the amazing boss checklist. Visually splendid arena and animations, compelling and tragic backstory, ear-melting thematic music, multiple dynamic phases, and a perfectly balanced challenge. The only one of these that I could see anyone having any reasonable argument against is the challenge component, as my first bout with her ended with a swift victory. However, ever since then, the battle has proven to be more of a challenge than I ever expected. Even if deaths to her are more sparse than other adversaries at this level of the list, she always keeps it engaging and interesting, and difficulty is certainly not everything. But in her second and third phase, she can definitely one-shot you without any warning. In some ways, I could view her as the Artorias of Bloodborne. She's a simple warrior, not a beast or a dragon. She's dipping deeper and deeper into chaos in a desperate effort to defeat you. And she's not the hardest boss of the game. There always seems to be a tragic tale to surpass all others in a particular game. Artorias strikes me as hardest from the first game, and then there's Morgott in Elden Ring, and Lady Maria in Bloodborne. As we assert our capacity to defeat her, she sinks deeper into the arts she swore to disavow, pulling every stop out in a desperate attempt to hide her own tragedies. The patients love her, and in her efforts to revert her wrongs, she has garnered the love of these twisted humans. I don't know if I should be disgusted or awestruck, and it's this complexity of themes and character woven into an intricate battle that keep me coming back to this with more and more appreciation over the years. Number 4, Ishin, the Sword Saint. Sekiro is full of fantastic bosses. It has the most consistent quality of any of the games. There are less bosses, but each one feels so precisely mechanically realized that there are few I would consider less than fantastic. However, the one problem with Sekiro bosses for me is that many of the great ones are missing a certain wow factor. Perhaps it's a personal bias, or perhaps I'm onto something, but every time I face a fantastic boss like Great Shinobi Owl or Lady Butterfly, I can't help but just wish they took one extra step. There is some disagreement with me and the Souls fans on the quality of Elden Ring bosses, and maybe the reason I find them so fantastic, despite some of the minor mechanical hiccups, is that they are so ambitious. They do go that extra step, more so than any other game in the series. All of these concerns evaporate when concerning Ishin, the Sword Saint. Not only does he contain copious amounts of wow, but he packages it in one of the most brutal, jaw-dropping encounters of the entire series. It becomes a genuine struggle when placing these top bosses, and on any day, any boss could trade places with another. But why is Ishin so great? Phase 1 of facing Genichiro is a fantastic tool to showcase how far you've come. As you make quick work of the fool, he slices into his neck and allows Ishin to clamber out of it. Ew! Then, an Ishin at his prime beckons you forward. Phase 2 isn't too challenging either, although it was on my first playthrough. I can slice through it in what feels like seconds, but back in the day, it'll let me feeling helpless. I think that's a sign of a great game. It's hard to master, but once you do, it becomes second nature. In any case, Phase 3 is perhaps the hardest in any of the series. It's up there with Malekith Phase 2 and Millennia as pure terror. The combos are long and arduous, and his speed and reach are unmatched. He legitimately pulls out a gun in a sword fight. Spears are harder to read than swords, and he swoops and slashes his way to your heart. The rolling hills remind me of the best of the series, Gehrman, Soul of Cinder, Millennia. It's grand and it's epic. It's personal and heartfelt. It's grueling and rewarding. I sometimes get the urge to play Sekiro again, just to fight Ishin, as there is probably never going to be a fight like this again. Before I get to my top 3, I just wanted to thank you all for watching. Be sure to hit that like button if you're enjoying, and subscribe for more content. I have a lot of Elden Ring and Soulsborne content on my channel, as well as all the previous Soulsborne Hero Ring boss ranking videos from this series. Number 3, Sister Fried. Alright, somebody got real butthurt I said Fried, because they said it's not Fried, it's Friede. I just want to say, it really, really does not matter how I pronounce it. Like, seriously. She doesn't mind, I'll let you know. Fried does not mind. Anyways, the sheer quantity of this fight is almost enough to get it a top spot instantly. We have Fried. God, I don't know which way to say it now. We have Friede and Ariandel, and then Lady Maria Friede. It packs 3 totally unique and distinct phases with a consistent through line that still gets me hyped to this day. The problem with Radagon and Elden Beast is that they really aren't a continuous battle of foes. The jump from Radagon to Elden Beast, despite how much I love both individually, is quite jarring. There is just about nothing mechanically or thematically tied between the two, other than the fact that they come at the end of your journey. Fried, on the other hand, is present for all 3 phases. All 3 are similar, yet distinct. We have a perfection of the stealth mechanic introduced all the way back with Priscilla. Your keen eye and ear are rewarded with careful attention, and this phase can be trivialized with proper knowledge. Next is a duo fight on par with the best of the series, preceded by my personal favorite cutscene of Dark Souls 3. I remember the first time I saw it and being convinced instantly that I would never beat this boss. Ariandel's rage and distress-fueled screams still floor me to this day. The balance of ice and fire, big and small, slow and quick, is executed masterfully. It's such an intense sequence of the game. And then finally, we have the glorious finale. Lady Maria's 3rd phase, but with more health to include more enjoyment. My only comment is that it can be somewhat of an endurance fight, considering the fact that you have to plow through 3 distinct phases for victory every time, but I find each one engaging enough to be impressive and absolutely worth it. There might not be another fight that perfectly balances my anxiety with pure spectacle and awe. This is a fight that I think a lot of people wouldn't rate this highly, but over the years, all I have done is love it more, and I always loved it in the first place, so definitely a boss that fits in the top 3 of Souls for me.
Alongside the great terror looms.
Number 2. Ludwig has been my favorite boss in any game for quite some time, and it's only recently that things have shifted. Not due to any fault of our horse friend, of course, as he remains a vile, twisted, yet honorable, and grand figure. Something clearly noted by Miyazaki is his dedication to the dignity of his characters. An artist from FromSoft one time noted during an interview, "When I was drawing the undead dragon, I submitted a design draft that depicted a dragon swarming with maggots and other gross things. Miyazaki handed it back to me saying, 'This isn't dignified. Don't rely on the gross factor to portray an undead dragon. Can you instead try to convey the deep sorrow of a magnificent beast, doomed to a slow and possibly endless descent into ruin?'" Now I'd have to ask what he had to say about the curse-rotted Greatwood's acid diarrhea, but nonetheless the premise remains. Ludwig is just about as disgusting as you can be. Much more so than mere maggots festering in open wounds. He is foul to the core. Until we see more. Phase 2 shifts the entire perspective of the fight, and it instantly goes from pure disgust to honorable heroics. I suppose the reason this boss is so beloved may be because it is so emblematic of the FromSoft design philosophy. They will go anywhere, tell any story, and even in doing so, manage to relay honor and dignity as a core message, no matter how depraved it can get. In a similar fashion to the previously mentioned Fried, Ludwig features two very distinct phases, one being erratic and unpredictable, deathly, and the other more akin to a towering knight. The music reflects these phases, as do the name changes. It's a tasty challenge every time I get here, one that gets my blood pumping and curdling and gets me excited for the character of Ludwig. And we get a beautiful epilogue after slaughtering the beast, and being able to speak to him in a truly saddening scene. God, it always just tugs at my heartstrings. I always have to lie to the dude because I would feel so horrible letting him know that all of his life's work was a waste and that what he turned into was for nothing. But thankfully, we're given that opportunity to lie to him and give him a peaceful demise. God, these games just really get to me, man. Number 1, Slave Knight Gale. When I first finished this series, Gale would not have been in my top 5. Not even my top 10. I remember quickly looking up rankings of the top 10 bosses of the series, only to be met with Gale time and time again. I was genuinely shocked, as there were so many other bigger, grander, more epic, better bosses, even in the same DLC, like Midir. How wrong I was. Barring all of the things surrounding the fight, being at the ends of the earth, the fact that it is the final Souls boss, it is simply the best one-on-one fight we have ever gotten. It could not be more perfect from start to finish. As I mentioned with Lady Maria, it ticks all of the boxes of an amazing boss, but it goes above and beyond. Every single thing it does here, it does better than any boss prior, from the most perfectly balanced challenge, the most amazing mechanics, the most amazing visual spectacle. Every time I come back to it, I am floored at what they achieved here, and it's not surprising to me that they have not managed to top it since, even with the perfection of the mechanics in Sekiro or the awe-inspiring scale of Elden Ring. I mean, look at this! From the intro and setup to the first phase, which is kind of like Orphan of Koths, but even better, more balanced, and more fun to me. Then the second phase, which is like Artorias. And the third phase, which is something even bigger. It's like combining the epics of the dragon fights of the series into a warrior one-on-one fight with this flying crossbow shots going everywhere. I mean, I'm losing my mind just talking about it. I can't get enough of this fight, and they managed to even add the HP to make it long enough. I mean, I could go on and on about this fight, but I'm off script at this point because I'm just rambling about how much I enjoy this fight. With all these bosses, we've gotten through 162. Somehow, something managed to top Ludwig to me, and that was Gale. I know that's kind of the cliche pick at this point to pick Gale, but it's honestly for a good reason. The boss is just that good. And I think anybody who plays the games enough will probably get closer to realizing how perfect Gale is over time, because that's what happened to me at least. Thank you guys so much for being along on this journey for me. It's been a long few months of making all these videos, ranking all the bosses of the series. We got Elden Ring DLC coming up, and I'm looking to make more content for this channel in the future. I'm currently in Australia, which is why the audio quality and editing might be a little bit off because I'm on a different setup. I don't even have my mic. This is on my iPhone. I'm just so glad you guys have been here along the journey. It means a lot to me because I've been doing YouTube for years. I've spent thousands of hours on YouTube before being able to see actual real success. So seeing this pay off has been really fun. You guys have been awesome in the comments and provided awesome feedback throughout the series. Be sure to go watch the other videos and all the stuff I have to offer. Subscribe if you're interested. And again, thank you so much for the support. It means so much to me. I look forward to seeing what we have in the future for us. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great day, and let me know your top 10 down below. Peace.